We here at Autogefühl, we don't only show you new vehicles, but we also show you new technologies that will probably soon be implemented into standard cars. Well, and we're a guest here today at Continental at the test facility. We're going to have some fun here with the Mercedes C63, but we're also going to take a test ride in a new Sono Motors Sion, a very interesting new small electric vehicle. Have a first exclusive ride with that one. We're also showing you new assistance systems, for example a turning assistant that will protect cyclists especially, and also pedestrians, but also other cars. And also some more indoor showcases for new technologies. How are we organizing all of this new technology that are evolving in the cars? How about the connectivity? And also, for example, using a cloud system that then again goes back outdoor, for example, to be used as a PreviewESC so that assistance systems react before the situation actually appears. So, very interesting technology insights for you here today, and I would say join us and enjoy everything together with us in Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! And a short transparency note for you, Continental does sponsor this video, however they have no influence on the content what we are showing, and also there's no agreement on any opinion or any rating we are giving, so I think that's also important to know for you. So, enjoy this content. And this one will be one of the very interesting single car pieces for today, an all-electric vehicle by Sono Motors, the so-called Sion or Sion. This one here is from a German independent manufacturer with headquarters in Munich, but is being built at the old Saab plant in Sweden. Very interesting story as for that. And it's quite famous already because the price is supposed to be at about 25,000 euros, soon starting with the series production. This one here is an early prototype from 2017. And we will drive this one here today for you and also tell you all about the possible charging, all the battery size and so on. So this might be an alternative to the established manufacturers. Will that work? We'll catch up for that soon. Maybe you've already seen that exterior and interior both is rather simplistic in design. Here also is very well integrated. Of course, all the panel gaps and so on are quite large still because this is an early prototype. And in the front you can see it right here. This is very interesting. You have an 11 kilowatt AC charger, but you also have up to 50 kilowatt DC charging, so both is possible for the 35 kilowatt hour battery. Supposed range of 250 kilometers in total, and what's also very interesting, it can also supply power back again if you think about outside gardening work, also to say some service work, even with high voltage. This is very interesting here because you can use this car then for different purposes, and depending on what your job is, you might need it, or just for leisure purposes if you want to apply some cooling for camping or whatever, so endless ideas. Here again in a more broader perspective, at the moment here the lights are also without any cover. And also again a rather simplistic design, also very good in an aerodynamic shape, because they want to keep the running cost of the car also pretty low. You've maybe also seen those tires here. They remind me also of the BMW i3 tires because they're quite slim, also to have really less resistance also from the rolling. Very interesting. And one of the key elements of this car are also the solar panels you can see here at the side. First of all here, and then of course at the top of the vehicle. This is very important, and they say they can gain back some 35 kilometers per day if you have that car parked out in the sun. Well, that might be especially working for some warmer countries where it's a lot of sun on the outside, and also when you think about maybe you don't have a charging possibility everywhere where you're going. but still there's an always chance to gain some, gain back some energy, even while driving out in the sun. Very interesting. Here the side profile, you can also see that it's rather upright to guarantee as much interior space as possible. And talking about the motor, so there are different concepts. Put it on the front axle, on the rear axle. Continental is supplying the motor for that one here. It's a permanent magnet motor. That's very interesting. We've recently driven that one in the Tesla Model 3, and those are more efficient than others. And Sono Motors says that they have a average consumption of about 14 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. That would be coming close to the one we have in the Tesla Model 3 recently with about 13. And that also shows how efficient the Tesla Model 3 is with this permanent magnet motor. So this motor type is very efficient. At the moment it's placed on the rear axle. In the final vehicle they will put it to the front again for packaging reasons. So especially in the rear you can see that this car here does not have a special design focus, so to say. Of course we have to see how the final car looks, but it's more about form follows function with this vehicle, definitely. And you can see maybe it's not the most beautiful car from the exterior here. Also again some more solar panels, but when you take a look at this trunk, wow. This is massive for such a small vehicle. Of course, it's not too high, it's quite high loading still right there. That might change again when the motor moves from the rear to the front axle. But again, those are really square dimensions, so you can put a lot of luggage here on the inside, although the car is really rather small. Interior, again, it's a rough prototype, a very early one, therefore you can see everything is not from any build quality, so to say, just to give you a basic design overview. And that you can check out that they want to have a simplistic design also on the interior. Some of the stock columns here from the BMW i3. It's very interesting, especially how you pick the gears, for example. There will also basic fabric seats, and they also try to take a look at sustainable materials, because when you look in the middle front there's like a vent with moss. That's very interesting. It does not have any special color from when it comes by natural and is being harvested, and then they can just color it. In this case they colored it green because everyone thinks moss is green. It's also the case in most cases, but this one, the special one, is not any green, but they just painted it green then. That's very interesting. But it filters actually the air by a natural one, and it keeps being alive. It's in there now for 2 years, and it's still alive, so it does indeed work. So pretty interesting idea to that. And there's a normal filter too. Here again you can see in the overview this green field. I think it really brings nature back to the vehicles. That's a very interesting approach. Here again the driving selector from the i3, very interesting. Also this small display, how it's being placed reminds us of that, where you can see the speed. And the rest will be done here with the central infotainment screen, for example also with ambient light. You can preheat the battery, for example. Again, this is all prototype status. But you can see, Clint Eastwood. You will have the audio system in here and also some information about the battery status and so on. So this is also kept pretty simple overall. But I like it, to have the simplistic design when they worked, and of course on the materials for the final vehicle. AC unit will be in the lower area, so they can still able to control that manual. It's also good to do that while driving. So overall, I think it's a nice simplistic mix. Well, due to this box building form of the car, I have a lot of headroom in the front, although being 1.86 m or 6'1". And let's see how that plays out for the rear. Well, yeah, that comes quite close. I mean, everything is quite upright. Headroom is also no problem. But when tall people are driving, not too much space in the rear. Although it's being said that the final vehicle will just be a little bit longer as well. Maybe that also works a little bit better then. Now we take a test ride in the Sion, as we say in Germany, or Sion, you can also say, from Sono Motors. So this small electric vehicle, by an independent manufacturer, I would call it. So not by one of the big ones. And you've already seen here from the BMW i3 this column here to pick the gears. But other than that, it's they use the Continental motor here at the moment on the rear axle with 160 horsepower, but in the final vehicle it will be in the front axle for packaging reasons. So it might depend on those new developments, you know, the MEB platform by Volkswagen, they will use also a rear motor predominantly. And it really depends on the individual manufacturer what makes more sense than to put it in the front or in the rear. Here at the moment you still feel that it's on the rear axle, and the acceleration is actually quite nice. To 100 kilometers or 62 miles now is about 9 seconds, but the lower speed areas is even faster. You can see it right now when I just hit it here. It's 50, 70, 80, 90, and that's 100. And when I hit the brakes, there is the recuperation. Here now also on the wet surface to test a little bit. Jonas there with the camera. So there's a really spontaneous acceleration, and that's also typical for the electric vehicles because you get this instant torque from the electric motor. Battery capacity here is 35 kilowatt hours. And the supposed range is about 250 kilometers. And the very interesting thing is, due to all the solar modules here all over the vehicle, you can recharge about 35 kilometers a day maximum when you have the car in the sun directly. So, I mean, you have the spontaneous acceleration, then the center of gravity is quite low, therefore the car also feels somewhat sporty. Although this one here is an early prototype, it doesn't have the stiffest chassis yet and also not the best insulation. So when you accelerate, for example, you still hear what's happening from the motor, you know. So you maybe also pick it up here on the inside from the microphone, that you hear the electric motor working. So that will be reduced in the final vehicle. But it's actually quite fun, you know. It has somewhat like a go-kart feeling. At the same time, you have a lot of space around you while driving, and maybe also some fresher air from this MOS filter I've shown you earlier. So here on the test track, well, the suspension, of course, is not the stiffest one, also quite soft. That's different, for example, to the BMW i3. We go into small slalom here. Car leans to the right and left, you can see that. I also feel that the tires are maybe not like, you know, not the most suitable for that at the moment. But again, it's an early prototype. Quite funny also to go on the red surface. It will be good to picture Jonas is picking up right there. But indeed, you know, the main use case for this one here would be in the city. And for that, I think, you know, you have a good feeling what's happening in the car, also around you. Quite square dimensions, you know where the car is ending. Accelerating out of the corners. That's at the moment where the rear axle drive would be an advantage. Later on with the front axle, it might be better when you have also, for example, winter conditions or so you can argue pro and con, definitely. Then about the recuperation, so there are no different recuperation levels here, but I can show you that again here on the test track when I just lift my foot off the throttle and the recuperation is happening. So it's not the harshest one, as we know from Tesla, but already quite strong. And if you want it stronger, then you just use the brake pedal and then you get to the maximum recuperation. And when you have reached the maximum recuperation and need even more braking power, then of course the normal brakes are being applied. But you know, in that way, as the recuperation is set at the moment, you can get along in the city quite well.
And now to a privacy technology feature here in the Jeep Grand Cherokee as a showcase vehicle. You know, especially in the US or even more in China, people really appreciate this privacy glass. But what if you want to change it? You maybe know this technology from a Mercedes SL, for example, where you have this panoramic roof, which can be just, you know, induced with a current and then you can see through, or it's being blocked. Very interesting. It's a little bit different as for the technology aspect in the SL. This one here now, those windows are specially made for curved side windows, and that you can also have a clear view through. And also those ones here are on liquid crystal basis, so there's an LC foil in there. And I have a special button right here where I can change that. So you can see this one then is watching all through. And then if I click again, I can close the curtain. you have special panels in here, yes, but you could, for example, also have a function where everything dissolves smoothly at once. So this is just one showcase that it's done in this special case right there. And this, of course, is really impressive. And the watch-through rate or the shadow rate is something between 1 and 40%. The dream is to really bring it to a level where you have 0 to 100%, where you can really fully vary what you want to have. And this foil, by the way, is blocking all the UV rays, for example, and also infrared, so everything that could be possibly toxic to your skin, so to say, and of course, from toxic views from the outside, from stalkers or whatever. So very, it's really a lot of fun to play with that. You can also check it out here at Jonas's side. Jonas here today, our cameraman, doing some magic, not only with technology, but also with the camera, wide again. And here you can see how that looks like from there. And we can also take a look at how it looks like from the outside. Not sure how much you can see me here now. So let's change that here for this one. Now we close the curtain again. I think you can see me now. Probably you just see Jonas with his camera. Now you can see a little bit more of me again. So very impressive as for this technology. The question here again is also, would you like to have such things here in your car? Before we can drive all autonomously, it's important to upgrade existing assistance systems. And in this normal Passat here, Continental has put in a new turning assistant. And the key technology aspect to that is that so far those radars were running on 24 gigahertz. And now this is running on 77 gigahertz. So there's a better radar resolution where the information can be picked up more accurately and also faster. And so for this turning showcase, we turn on the right, and then there's a cyclist coming from the rear. And let's see if the car does realize that for us, if we would be missing that, especially this technology will be very important for trucks, because it is calculated that by this new technology, more than 1/3 of deadly accidents with trucks and pedestrians or cyclists could be prevented. And now we're on board here with Michael Cvetkovic. He is a test vehicle engineer at Continental, and we have this radar showcase here with a cyclist. So why are we stopping now?
Behind this truck, when both the bicyclist and the car is in the standstill, the radars are blind. If one of the car or the bicyclist is in movement, the radar will detect it.
Yeah.
Okay. In front of us, we have a crossing scenario. As soon we are started, the bicyclist will start in our blind spot. So we are totally blind. We don't see him in the mirror. We don't see him if we turn the heads. The system will switch on when I turn the right signal, the indicator to the right side. You can see here on the right side then a red light. Yeah, this is a pre-warning system for me as a driver. When I see this red light on, something is dangerous for me. So I can react by myself, I can brake by myself, I can even not turn into the street. But if I ignore that signal and try to turn into the street, you will see the autonomous braking from the car.
So, here we go. So it's basically like a blind spot monitor, but just for, intersection turning.
Yeah, exactly. Blind spot detection with an emergency brake assist behind it. So see here, indicator is on, warning light, and I ignore it.
Wow.
If the system will not brake, it just hit him in your door.
Yeah.
So the system will save lives.
Yeah, especially because quite often in Germany we have then the green light for pedestrians or cyclists, and very often the trucks run over cyclists and actually kill them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even cars are heavily involved in such accidents.
You should always check your tire pressure for best fuel consumption, best handling. Has also a lot to do with safety, of course. It should always be the right amount which the manufacturer is recommending, and you should check it regularly. And you also might know, thinking about the Rally Dakar, they change the tire pressure while driving, for example, adapting to sand situations. And so, this one here is a showcase where this could be done for normal passenger cars. This is also a special designed wheel where all the stuff you need for pumping it up, or going down again, So inside the wheel, so you can keep up a very interesting design on the exterior, but then also have some space for all those pressure changing systems. And for example, when you're on the motorway, just running straight, you just put more air in the tire, reduce, for example, the rolling resistance by 10% by that. And when you have some off-road situations or more agile handling situations, then you would let some air out of the tire again and have a little bit more performance. Very interesting. Here on the rear tire of this Audi Q3, you can also see how they started with that. This was the first system, normal wheel, and then a special box or disc behind that for all the pressure systems. And then the one you've seen earlier in the front was, there's also another wheel here in the trunk of the car. There you can take a look at it again. Then this is the new generation where they can also integrate it here. Basically, see here, the stuff is then hidden behind those cases. Very interesting technology-wise. But what happens when actually you get a puncture? So I mean, then that doesn't have anything to do when we're applying more or less pressure. This is very interesting here. Another showcase. So in this special tire, you have some material inside which works as a sensor, and then it's as soon as the puncture goes through, there's a current, and then it's being transported to the transmitter, and the transmitter then sends it to the vehicle, and then the vehicle knows when a puncture is happening. And there's a showcase right here for that. So there's a normal tire here, and you see there's already been a lot of test punctures right there. Pretty interesting. And so we'll just put a puncture right there, and then you can see here also on the screen, when this button here is gray, there's no puncture. And when I'll push it down now, the light should actually change that the car system is detecting a puncture. So let's see, let's hit that in. There it is. There it is. So now we're all the way through, and there you can see also this yellow light. But interesting here, it quickly dissolves because this is also a tire with this sealing technology. Then some liquid comes up, hardens together with oxygen, and then you can see the tire is sealed and can be driven just normally. Well, so in this case, maybe the puncture sensor is not the most needed one, but still you might want to change the tire at some point when the needle is still in or something, then it can damage the tire on the long run. So these are all new technologies which can make your ride a little bit safer or maybe also more efficient. And now we're going to test a new, even more evolved voice recognition system. We already know some from Mercedes or from BMW, the recent ones, which already work quite well for putting in GPS information or, for example, changing the temperature. But this system here is even more involved. So we are in the Volkswagen Tiguan at the moment, and we have a special customized screen. It's not really meant for that car, but Continental has just put it right in here as a showcase. We have a voice here, by the way, called Brian, GB. So yeah, that's fitting to our colleague Brian. Let's see how he sounds in here, and also what we can do with this system. Let's take a closer look here. In this case, with BMW or Mercedes, you say, hey Mercedes, hey BMW, and here we just call it Companion. Hey Companion, there it is. Get me a vegan restaurant close by.
I searched for vegan restaurants and this is what I found.
Get me more information on number 2.
Here you go. More details about lavish donor and vegan and backwaren.
Start navigation.
I have started the guidance for you.
So, yeah, funny voice, and now we have something in the GPS, very interesting. What else we can do with that one here? For example, hey Companion. Companion? When's my next appointment?
Your coming appointment go to the gym is on Thursday, July 4th at 3 p.m. Find more details on your infotainment screen.
Can you guide me there?
I have started the guidance for you.
I have started the guidance for you. Yeah, that's exactly how Brian would say it. Right, wouldn't you, Brian? Hope you're watching this. I'm watching you. Yeah, so now, again, of course, something interaction with the GPS. But there are also other use cases possible. For example, at the moment, I have a check engine light here. Hey, companion. What's wrong with my car? We also see it in a
oxygen sensor seems to be defective. This should be checked by a specialist. Shall I make an appointment with your dealership?
Yeah, do that.
I have checked the dealership schedule. There is a free time slot next Thursday afternoon. Looks like you are available too. Would you like me to make an appointment?
Yes, make the appointment.
I have added an appointment on Thursday at 3 p.m. to your calendar. You can find more information about the warning on your infotainment screen.
That's so nice. By the way, here on the lower part, you can always see what I just said. This is, just here for our special use case, we activated that so you can see what the system actually understood when I talked to the system. That's also very interesting. Have you ever thought about cutting a BMW 5 Series in half and putting it in your living room? Well, that way it would be possible. Would that be one of your dreams? It's quite interesting, to use it as a home cinema or something. I really gotta think about that. Maybe there's some 5 Series at the junkyard I can get for that. But to the technology sample right here, this is about, you can see this sign up there, not ready, and it will turn to ready right there as soon as a camera system here on the inside realizes that, because it's this piece here, this is the demo sample. So there's one camera looking to the front and one camera looking towards me. It's not for constant recording what I'm doing, because that would probably be too boring even for the car while I'm driving. No, it's meant to observe the driver if you're ready to take over. And this is very significant for level 2 or 3 autonomous driving, or for the transition between it. Because sometimes there are situations where the car is driving, and sometimes there are situations where you are driving, and the car needs to know when are you ready to take over the steering wheel, or maybe are you still brushing your teeth or whatever, or are you eating pizza, or are you sleeping, whatever. Then the car does need to know you're ready. So, and here at the moment, when I'm just looking somewhere, I don't have my hands on the steering wheel, then the car says not ready. But when I'm now looking to the front, have my pelvis and everything upright, and also put a hand on the steering wheel, then it says driver is ready to take over. As soon as I take off a hand off the steering wheel, there it is. The car realized this is probably not a driving situation anymore where I could be responsible. So the car rather keeps driving itself. Or maybe when I look to the side, see, lean myself off to the road, then again not ready, then I look to the straight road again, then I'm ready again. So very interesting as for that, and I think this can help to communicate between driver and car. After all, the car is a robot, so to say, then in this stage, and especially this transition period before everything is being driven autonomously at some point. There will be those transitions where you say, like a traffic jam, I'll let the car drive itself, and when I go to the countryside road, that's where I'm the expert, and then I drive again. And so we need those transition technologies to be able to communicate between those different steps. And as a small sidekick, this is a new 3D display. Unfortunately, you cannot see it on a 2D camera, but I can tell you, you see some of the nice visualizations, yes, but I can tell you when you look at it with your own eyes, it really symbolizes a kind of depth. And how is this working? There is a back panel light, so behind this screen, that is then shining from the back part to the front, and this simulates then three-dimensional depth in your viewing field. That's very interesting. So indeed, when I look at it now myself, I can see almost I could grab in the screen. So this is very interesting. This could be then a use case, for example, for the GPS, that you can see more what's going on. Or maybe also for some other future stuff. Who knows what that's being used for. Well, this one here is the Alpha Giulia with a new system called PreviewESC. And how is that working? So, look at that one here. This S-Class here behind us is driving over this wet surface. And what's being happening is now this data saying, hey, I just discovered a wet surface, is being sent to a server, to a cloud, and then this Alpha Julia is receiving that and knows, in connection to map data and also about, connecting all the radar and camera and stuff, actually knows when the wet surface is beginning. So usually those electronic stability programs, they react in the situations where stuff is happening. So when the wet surface is beginning, when you are in the situation. And sometimes this can even be too late, or we have to work a little bit more against it. So what we're going to do now is driving through this wet corner here with a normal ESC, and then take a look at, both situations will be stable, yes, but take a look at that when I'm driving through the corner, how I have to react or I have to work and do with the steering wheel all the time. That's very, very interesting. And then we activate the PreviewESC, this new technology, where the car knows basically a second ahead what's happening in this corner to provide an even safer situation. And now driving here in the Alpha Julia and approaching a wet corner with normal ESC on. And we're about 60 kilometers, and let's see, it's very interesting. So the car does keep me in the lane. That was a pretty good experience, but we'll now pick up the speed. So it always depends on the speed and what grip the tires do still offer. So we still keep it with a normal ESC. And let's go a little bit faster and see what happens. The car now at about 70 kilometers an hour. Let's see here, I already go out of the corner a little bit, although the ESC is on. So I have to apply the brakes. So it was still a controlled situation, but you realize that the ESC had to react first. So now let's turn on this new PreviewESC by Continental and see how that one does is any different. I pick up the speed again at 70 kilometers an hour. Let's see if there's a difference. Did you hear this beep? So it reacted basically a second before we went on the red track. So let's try that again. And well, how does it work? The system is gathering data from the cloud. So when there, for example, cars already driving in front of that, then it's actually giving the information to the system, and you're a little bit safer because the ESC is reacting a little bit ahead. So very interesting. Camera data, of course, this is also being gathered, and everything is being processed and in the cloud, so different vehicles can profit from each other. So let's run again a little bit faster. And now at about 75. Yeah, this one worked pretty well now. So especially felt here that the inside wheels are being controlled. So ESC, the electronic stability control system, is always working that individual wheels are being reduced in speed. And you see, especially when you're at those higher speeds, it can actually make a big difference if the system is reacting a second earlier or later.
So I just booked a ride in an autonomous minibus. This one is the Cube, Continental Urban Mobility Experience. And 2 years ago, we already reported on that one. Meanwhile, this one here is an updated version. It's produced by EasyMile. Continental has shares in that company, and they're in Toulouse, actually, in France, producing those chassis here. And Continental are supplying the assistance systems for it. For example, the radar, the LiDAR also, the laser sensor. This one is new from that one. It's driving faster now, up to 20 kilometers an hour. Yeah, that's not too fast, but for example, for showgrounds, it could be a use case to get around in that one. But it's not their goal to sell those vehicles here for the end customer. They rather want to showcase all of the different systems they want to put here and then sell it to autonomous vehicles. So let's take a ride and see what's changed.
So I could even book my seat on the smartphone in advance and could also call it like you would do with an Uber or a Lyft. So all smartphone app based, that you can call your own minibus from wherever you're at the moment. And I can also press it here to start the ride overall. So indeed it is a mix of autonomous vehicle and a real city bus, this autonomous minibus. And yeah, I mean, for real public traffic, it's maybe not fast enough so far. But then again, also have to think about people are standing upright in here, just holding tight. Maybe some are being seated. But even more interesting is, well, no one is controlling this one here at the moment. This is really, it's no fake, no test. Well, it is a test, but but a real test and like an authentic test. And you can see there's a smartphone zombie running over the road. And indeed, the car did realize that, together with all the sensors that are packed in this vehicle, because when you look at the visualization of that, it's really creating a 3D image all around of the environment around this car. And this is also what it needs to differentiate between what it's actually, you know, where did you need to brake and where not, maybe. This car here now has also an ABS system, so the anti-blocking system for the brakes, because when it's a little bit faster, it might be needed in slippery conditions, for example. Maybe you've also seen the wheels are turning, so this also has a rear axle steering, or both axle steering, so that also has a very small turning circle then. Well, and even the best assistance systems do not help at some point when there's a very slick surface and you have the wrong tire choice. What I mean by that? We show that to you in a very funny way, here with the Mercedes C63 AMG. Well, this test is really particularly funny, because not only that there are those special tires where in the front we have a lot of grip and in the rear we don't, but also this asphalt here, just in the middle part, is so super slick. And so it's really, you know, I'm just driving 20 kilometers an hour and the car is already beginning to drift, and that's, you know, super unusual. So it's not only that the surface is wet, it's also that it's especially slick, and usually a drift would not be possible at this speed and not on asphalt. So it's almost like summer tires on ice. So slick is it really. And you can see I have to get used to it. It's like learning to drift in a new way, because everything is going so fast. It's probably the slowest drift I've ever done. So you have to work a lot against it. I mean, the speed does not fit to the movement I do with the wheels. This yeah, it's really insane. But it shows you then how much it also can do a difference if you have fresh tires, used tires, and what kind of tires. And you know that there are also, see here, that's already too much, and then we're done. And then, did you hear the tire squeaking? So here, just also on the other asphalt, here from outside this line, I have definitely more grip. So although it's also wet, it's this combination, you know, that here we have the very slick asphalt. You can hardly see that on camera, but here it makes so much difference. And then of course the tire choices. It's very interesting, by the way, also from market to market. In Europe we want really safe tires, so we change them earlier. They have more grip, but then again they have better braking and handling performance. In China people want very silent tires and soft tires, so they have a lot of comfort, for example. Here again, it was already too much, and then we could switch it around. And in America, people want tires that are really just, you know, long living, but then they have less performance. And it really depends on the market what is desired, and you cannot actually develop a perfect tire, because it always depends on what do you want. You know, want the tire to live longer, you want more grip, you want less noise, and so to say. And you can just, you know, like with the adjustment here in the infotainment system for the speakers, you know, when you put it to one side, then you have something else on the other side. So that's very interesting as for the tire development. So, and here now, see here, yeah, that's already too much. So I think it's a fun showcase here to to really see what the tire choice can actually make, do with the car. I can also initiate the drift here on the outside circle, by the way. Yes, there is more grip, but still there would be the effect from the more grip tires on the front and less grip on the rear. It's just that here on the outside, I just need a little bit more speed to initiate it. And here on the inside, less speed is already enough here. Even if I don't use the throttle, it's already going sideways. So yeah, very interesting experiment here with one of the slowest drifts ever. Whee!
So we've shown you a lot of different new technologies here today, and a lot of new assistance systems or things that can help you actually in everyday driving life or make it safer. Now I want to hear from you which one of those technology we've shown you want to see first implemented in a standard vehicle. And don't say the drifting tires now. I'll watch that. Well, so give us some feedback, please. I think we had a lot of interesting insight here today, because it's really often not only the manufacturers but really the suppliers who change what's been going on and really implement all those small technologies then to the vehicles, because those suppliers, they can concentrate on really individual parts that are then bought by the manufacturers. If you ask me what was my favorite, I think most important is the turning assistant, because this assistant that can ultimately save lives, and it's also relatively easy to implement in all those existing vehicles and are those that are coming new to the market and also will be mandatory with trucks, at least in Europe. So this is a very helpful system. I think is also, let's say, closer to reality. And of course, we'll take a look throughout the years now at the Sono Motors project. That one is also very interesting. Can this finally be an electric vehicle for the masses at a really low price? This one will also be very interesting to follow. So tell me about your favorites in the comments, and also join us next time for a full review or for another technology insight.